My name is Sharat Chander. Before I introduce myself, if you as an attendee have been with today's conference, JLove yesterday or today or both days, we really should give our thanks to the conference organizers. Doing something like this, having done it myself or attempted to do it many times in the past, is not easy. And in these times we're living in right now, for the JLove team to put on a conference that really almost replicates as much of that person-to-person, face-to-face experience that you have at an on-site conference, they've done a fantastic job emulating this in the online version. And I'm very thankful for Ali and the JLove team for putting this on. If we could all show them some JLove on social and thank them for their efforts, I'm sure they would appreciate it, because there would be nothing better than to have a JLove 2 sometime in the future, where you can all get immersed in talks by a myriad of experts in the industry. Obviously, the conference started yesterday. It's continuing today on Saturday. If you're making time on your Saturday, thank you. You've heard probably many talks that are very technical, very enriching, very learning focused. But for today, I really want to take you through a journey of what has happened over the last 25 years around Java that can help make Java vibrant for the next 25 years. So a little bit of an introduction. My name is Sharat Chander. I'm with Oracle. I've been part of the Java platform team now, going back to the year 2000, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. As you can probably tell by all of this gray hair in my hair and my beard. I've been privileged enough to work on projects and products like NetBeans, Java Studio Creator, multiple Java technology efforts, but more importantly, a lot of my time over the last 10 years has been about embracing the community and helping you grow and advance your careers, grow your technology and your applications, and create a better relationship between you and Java. And so if you have a chance, please follow me at Twitter. I'm more than happy to connect with you, as I've connected with many of you in the past. Many of the folks watching today, I know who you are. I'm looking forward to meeting the folks that I don't know, so we can have those conversations in the future, so I can help you as best I can. This is a pretty exciting year for Java. As many of you know, we celebrated its 25th birthday back in May, on May 23rd. Very inspiring time, very humbling time. We've actually created a campaign to celebrate its 25 years, and to celebrate it not just from May moving forward, but for the next calendar year and perhaps beyond. I would ask for you to take a look at our campaign page, Moved by Java. There are many assets for you to take part in, to participate in, stories you can hear from some of your peers in terms of how Java has inspired them. We've also created an interactive timeline to kind of show the journey of the last 25 years in terms of important milestones. And so we would ask for you to, join us on this journey and look for more activities moving forward as part of the Our World Moved by Java campaign. So, celebrating 25 years of Java, it's moved so many of us. It's moved us personally in terms of our careers. It's moved us professionally in terms of driving innovation forward in businesses. It's both digitally and physically moved e-commerce around the world and commerce around the world, but it's also moved us to be more passionate about what we do. And it's pretty inspiring, whether you've used Java for 1 year or just new to Java, or been using Java for 10, 15, maybe 20 plus years as myself. It's astounding to just see how robust Java is in terms of its ubiquity across the industry, how many markets it influences, how many applications it just touches around the world, whether on mobile, on a server, on a desktop, in various social applications. Java literally touches everything we touch in terms of what we interact with. And that's pretty inspiring. It continues to be the #1 programming language. I'm just fascinated to see it continue to grow. And that's because we ensure that Java continues to be flexible in terms of what your needs from the past were and what your needs towards the future are. We want to ensure it stays reliable, bulletproof in terms of it being able to function and utilize the code you've written in the past to be able to reutilize that in the future. but also performance is so important, especially in this modern age where application development is changing so rapidly and so fast. We want to ensure performance is not negotiated away. And so our relentless pursuit here in the Java team is to ensure two things as our sort of fundamental model. One is developer productivity. Now, this is important to me coming from a tooling background where it doesn't matter what you build if you can't be productive. And so as we look to evolve the language and the platform, we want to make sure the choices we make are making your life easier in terms of developer productivity. But also in equal measure, it's about that application performance. When you get that innovation created and you've deployed it, you want that to be as performant as possible. And we constantly face this evolving world where paradigms are changing, application styles are changing. Think about all the different target environments that you can now focus your application on, whether it's a headless device, a remote sensor that might live out in the field for 1, 5, 10, 20 years without someone even touching it. Maybe you have an application that's just running for microseconds in the cloud, or you have a legacy application running on a backend server that's mission critical for this, providing stability to your business. We want to ensure Java can focus in on that. And it's also important to recognize that hardware architecture also changes around us. So as we look at developer productivity and application performance, we're taking a look at all of the things that are evolving around us to make sure we're making the best decisions possible. Now, some of you might know Brian Getz. He's the chief language architect of Java for many years. That's his picture right there in the lower left-hand corner. He has an interesting perspective, and it's important to share this perspective with you. And it's this notion of how to be thoughtful about this evolution. We have this sort of yin and yang situation, a push and pull sort of struggle in some situations. Some of you are of the mindset that less change is needed. What matters the most to you is compatibility, to make sure what I've written is stable today and will be stable tomorrow. Now, there's others of you who would want rapid innovation. Give me the bleeding edge. Give me the cutting edge. Give me sort of like what is, cool and interesting right now. And if you're in the middle of that equation where we are at Oracle, we're probably hated from both sides. It's like one side wants you to move slow, another side wants you to move really fast. And we juggle both of these sides of the balance sheet as best we can because we know how vibrant Java is in terms of its broadness and utility across multiple industries. Some industries move fast, some industries move slow. And we want to make sure the choices and the changes we make are suitable for as many of your end users as possible. And so we don't want to alienate anyone. We want to make sure backwards compatibility remains true, but at the same time inject innovation and new features such that it allows you to embrace this ever-changing landscape of modern application development. And so what I thought today, because you've heard so many talks about technical aspects of Java and how to utilize perhaps specific features, considering it's the 25th birthday of Java, I wanted to give you 25 reasons why the future of Java is even brighter for tomorrow based on the history of where we've gotten today. And so throughout the course of the rest of the presentation, I'm going to have a lot of material that I'm going to share. Some of these slides have URLs and QR codes. Feel free to screen capture that or scan it with your phone. This will take you to the resource to find more information and kind of do that double click down once today's event is over, and for you to then do that sort of self-exploration and journey around all of the things that I'm going to present today, both from a technology standpoint as well as a resource standpoint. So let's get started. So how do we move Java forward beyond where we are today? First and foremost, we absolutely must preserve the virtues of Java in terms of what has made Java what it is today. Now, these virtues started even before I started using the technology. We want to ensure ease of use is always there. Obviously, that comes from making sure the language enhancements we make to the syntax and the language construct become easier to approach and easier to read, but also easier to maintain. Security is non-negotiable. We live in a world where there are multiple target vectors that are growing at an ever-increasing pace. And we want to be very thoughtful and recognize that, such that the changes we make in Java ensure that your application is as secure as it possibly can be. Reliability is also something that's very important in terms of one of the foundational virtues. We want to make sure all of the tools, all of the technologies, all of the libraries, all of the frameworks that we develop around Java are reliable and functional. And lastly, platform independence. I was talking about hardware earlier. We want to make sure as the hardware landscape changes, we want to make sure we're holding true to that write once, run anywhere promise. But I would say this, I've heard an interesting quote just a couple of months ago. And if you don't know who George Saab is the vice president of the Java Platform Group, where all of the innovation happens around Java here at Oracle. He was actually one of the founding members of the Java team back in the early 90s. And he says, it's not just write once, run anywhere. It's about write once, run any when. And what he means by that is applications that you write, you want to be able to write and have it run whenever you need. There are some applications that are always constantly running, or sometimes there's an application that takes a pause or as an application at rest. And we want to make sure that when your application is running or when you need your application to running, that you have the ability to do that. And so I'm really intrigued by George's quote of write once, run any when. It's very important. So number two, where does all of this innovation happen? I sometimes get the question, where is all the magic happening? And the reality is, there is no magic. There is no hidden card trick. We do all of our development, all of our open innovation in the Openjdk project. This is a place where Oracle Engineering collaborates with the community, with contributors to create an open source implementation of Java SE and all of the related projects that make Java. And this is a place where you can go to see where all of that innovation happens. We do this through an open development model. So number three, all of you can see all of this transparently. Nothing is hidden. We have open mailing lists on every project that makes up the Openjdk project. And there are hundreds of them. So you as an end user can subscribe to all of these mailing lists to see the actual design decisions, what choice is being made, why is that choice being made? Or more importantly, why was a choice not made and the reasons around that? Or more importantly, sometimes the code check-ins, you can actually see that discussion happening. And so if there's a specific area of a project inside Openjdk that is of interest to you, I suggest subscribing to the relevant mailing list, and you can then follow along in an open and transparent fashion. And throughout today's presentation, you'll hear the word open because it's so important to the notion of Java. Number four, a developer's guide. Like every open source project can sometimes be a challenge to approach, especially if you're new to the technology. Now, for those of you that have been using Java for 5, 10, 20 years, the understanding of how an open source project works, especially Openjdk, is probably something you already know. But for that next generation of developers that are just becoming exposed to Java, or as they learn, we want to make sure we have a developer's guide available to you so you can understand what is happening, what is the development process, what are all of the tools that are inside the Openjdk project, and what are all of the standards that make it possible. Further education is the only thing that's going to help Java stay vibrant and alive, and it's our responsibility to ensure this developer's guide continues to evolve with information that is up to date and current. So we consider this guide a living and breathing document, and we look to make sure that there's continual improvement to it with every step we take moving forward. And so even if you've been using Java as long as I have, it's sometimes a good opportunity to go back to the developer's guide and maybe look at some of the things you are not as familiar with that you were in the past. And so refamiliarize yourself with the things that we're doing with this open source project. Number five, participation. As I said, as the leaders and stewards of Java, we also do this hand in hand with the ecosystem. And the Openjdk project is interesting in that we have several types of ways you can participate, where you can collaborate, where you can contribute, where you can connect. As an author, a committer, or as a reviewer, or even if you're daring enough and go through all of the appropriate checks and balances, become a project lead. And I'm so thankful many of you have taken on that role and responsibility and are helping us evolve the platform to move it forward. And it takes many hands, many eyes, and many ears to advance anything, especially in community. If you think about it, community is a group of people that build something, they maintain something, and they innovate something together. And so we want to be able to collaborate with you and have that participation. So again, an open way to participate. We encourage you to take a look and explore all of these different ways to participate and join the journey with us. Number 6. So Openjdk Project, this is where we create the open source implementation for Java SE. What do we as Oracle then produce from this? Well, we have 2 offerings for you, and it's important that we have multiple offerings. One is the Oracle OpenJDK release. This is released under a free and open source release license. That means you can use this version of Java anywhere, anytime for free. In fact, the roots of Java, going back when we open sourced it in 2009, was on an open source license. But the original open source license, the BCL, was actually rather restrictive. And so we've enhanced it by adopting and enhancing a new licensing model for Oracle OpenJDK. We are now using the GPL v2 license with class path exception, which just basically says, yes, you can use Java for free. You can use it in any environment without any encumbrance. We also have a commercial version of Java called Oracle JDK. Apologies for the error on the slide, but Oracle JDK is under a commercial license. Now, many of you are in an industry that actually mandates that you have a commercial license for technologies that you use. And so we want to make sure we have an offering for those that are more open to using an open source license, but also something that requires a commercial license. So the choice is yours. Pick the one that suits your needs the most. And we'll get this slide corrected because we'll make these slides available at the end of the event and make sure you have a correct version of this deck. 7. So tools. I came from a background of IDEs. To me, tools is very important because tools is where all productivity typically happens. And you want to make sure you're using the right tools for the job that's necessary. And in Java, we have many command line tools. And more recently in Java 8 and Java 9, we've made several new tools available. One is JDEPs, which allows you to understand all of the dependencies that are in your jar and in your package. That's very useful in terms of as you develop your application. Another useful tool is JDeperscan. Now, my father used to tell me, to grow a tree, you sometimes have to prune it. And it's the same thing with technology. Sometimes there are legacy aspects of that technology or features that are no longer, needed. And so why should there be this expectation that you as the user have to continue to pull along all of those old areas of the technology that are no longer in use? And so what JDeperscan does, it scans your code to actually identify those APIs that are targeted for deprecation. We'll never eliminate a feature without first deprecating it. We want to make sure we're positioning you to understand what will potentially be removed in the future. And with JDeperscan, it allows you to understand what some of those deprecated APIs are so you can prepare for it thoughtfully before it's ultimately removed or ultimately pruned from the platform. Another useful tool is JLink, one of the most exciting tools I think that has ever come around. This actually allows you to create a custom runtime environment for your application. If you think about it, the years before where you just had a standard JRE, when you utilize that in your application, there's many parts of the runtime that your application may not have even been using. That's just extra overhead because eventually someone is going to have to maintain that code. And so all of you have different types of applications which have different dependencies on the JDK itself. And so this tool allows you to build your application that only utilizes those parts of the JDK, allowing it to scale down the size of your application, allowing it to scale down the code that you have to maintain, but also creates a strict encapsulation to reduce the attack vectors on your application by nefarious choices. And then this may not seem like it's innovative, but to me, it was pretty special when we introduced Java Docs and introduced a search bar in as a feature. Like, I find search bars extremely helpful. Anything that'll help me navigate to the information I need within my application, so much the better. And I find it extremely useful. Now, we have many more command line tools. You can take a look at the URL and scan the code to find out some of those. But beyond the tools, something I want to talk about while we're here on number 7 is that notion of IDEs. It's great that all of you have choices. For sure, if you're still using Emacs or VI or Vim, if that's the way you like to develop your application, that's great. I know many of you have turned to IDEs. And how great is it that you have multiple IDEs to turn to? You know, I started off in NetBeans. I love NetBeans to this day. I will always love NetBeans, but it's great to see other IDEs as well. JetBrains makes a great idea for Java, as well as the Eclipse Foundation with their IDE. And choice matters. So pick the tools that fit your needs or what you find most useful to you. Feedback. Now, before we want to release some features, we also want to ensure that we're getting the right amount of feedback on those. And so we've introduced the notion of 3 mechanisms for some new features that may not quite be ready. One is experimental features for the JVM itself. So these experimental features, if you choose to look at them, there is a flag that you will need to use. We want to ensure that you're not accidentally using this in production. But this is for experimental, by identifying experimental features that are not quite ready, that are specific to JVM. This gives us an opportunity to get your feedback in that regard. We also have incubator modules. Now, incubator modules are specific to APIs and JDK tools that we want to one day think about introducing into the platform. But we want to do that once it's stable. And so with incubator modules, we get a chance to get your feedback and make design decisions. Now, sometimes some of these modules may not make it, but if it kind of fits a need and we have the feedback and there's a stability to it, we can then take the next step to then think about how to then introduce that into the platform. And then lastly, preview features. Now, we consider preview features to already be fully specified and implemented. We're just looking for that last bit of feedback in real world situations from end users. And so preview features typically can be either a first preview, sometimes a second preview. In very rare instances, will we have a third preview, but once a preview feature gets all of the needed feedback, we then expect that preview feature to make it into a downstream release of Java in the future. And there's a great Java Magazine article in terms of all of these types of experimental incubator and preview features. My colleague David Delabase, who's part of the Java DevRel and Java advocacy team, has a great article in Java Magazine that I would ask for you to turn to and read more in detail about to get more information. Now, because we have this notion of an open platform, open contribution, we now have changed the mechanism in terms of how we release Java. We're also innovating for the future. And so doing this in an open fashion, it allows us to work on very large projects that have the ability to advance Java in many ways. Many ways in terms of defining things for markets like AI and machine learning or big data, taking advantage of new hardware architecture, or thinking about with millions of virtual threads can be productive for you, or for that matter, how do we make changes to the language so the language syntax is more readable, but also more writable, and more importantly, more maintainable. And then there's also projects that are underway that are looking at startup speed. A lot of times there's some applications that actually become more performant after warm up, but some applications need that faster startup time. And so all of these large scale projects have subcomponents to it. And so with the changing model we have with our release cadence, it allows us to incrementally introduce features that map back to these parent projects in a much more timely fashion for you. And so this is just a collection of some of the large-scale projects we're working on. You can find more details of other projects as well at openjdk.java.net. Now, I was mentioning the release cycle around Java. So, in years past, it used to be our promise to make Java available every 2 years, roughly. But what happened was when we had a feature driver bound to a release, what happens? Sometimes it takes more time than necessary to get that feature done. But once we've committed it to a specific release, it can delay that release. And that's what we saw between Java 8 and Java 9. There was a promise to release in 2 years, or a commitment at least to release in 2 years. It took over 3 years to get Java 9 out the door. Now, what happens over 3 years? The pace of technology moves at an ever rapid changing pace. And that doesn't do anything for you. You're sitting there waiting for all the new functionality that may have already been built because one feature is holding up an entire release. That's not fair to you, and it's not fair to your innovation. And so what we've done is we've changed the model to a 6-month release cadence, where we're releasing Java every 6 months. And so features are late binding. We don't put a feature into a release until it is done. It is tested, it is stable. And that way, through the JEPs process, Java enhancement proposals, JDK enhancement proposals, that is, once a JEP is completed, we will then introduce it as a candidate for a release. And once all the checkboxes are done, we then make it available in that release. But if you look at the totality, what's happened since March of 2018 until September of 2020 this year? We've had how many releases? 6, 2 every year. And the combined total of those 6 releases is 72 JEPs. 72 JEPs over 3 years, which is starting to look like pretty similarly how many JEPs we had between Java 8 and Java 9. So with every release, we always have performance, security, and stability updates, but you're now also getting incremental innovation at a pace that's rapid, which makes it much more approachable for you to make better innovative decisions with the types of features we're making available to you as the end user. Now, what's the best way to participate? I oftentimes get this question as well. So idea number 11, the best way for you to participate and contribute to Java is through the early access of our releases. So before we make any release available, that's general availability, we also have an early access version that's out there. So we just released Java 15 in September of 2020. And before even getting Java 15 out the door, we already had early access builds ready for Java 16. Java 16, if you're keeping up with the release model, will be available in March of 2021. And you can also start thinking about Java 17 and start looking at early versions of Java 17 as we approach the availability of Java 16. And what this allows you to do is, within your production pipelines with your GA release, you can also do some beginning testing about the next release of Java to see where some of the areas of focus will need to be that you'll need to be able to address. So early access is a great way to start. It's a great way for you to give us feedback and make sure that we're making, again, the right decisions of improvement and quality to what we make available to you. jdk.java.net. So number 12, getting back to the hardware conversation, we always want to make sure we're looking at modern hardware architectures. With Java 15, we are now making Java available on 64-bit platforms that target both Windows, Linux, and Mac environments. And with Java 16 around the corner, maybe there's some updates that will be forthcoming in terms of new hardware configurations that will target. But the hardware environment is always changing, and we want to make sure every release of Java is aware and can be configured to meet those needs of modern hardware architectures. Now, libraries and frameworks. I heard a colleague in the Java ecosystem, some of you might know him. He actually presented here at JLove, Nikolai Parlog. I remember him having a conversation with him at a conference. He said, libraries, frameworks. And I just loved the passion he spoke with. But you as a Java developer have so much available at your fingertips in terms of things you can start utilizing that have already been created. Think about all of the libraries and frameworks that have been developed over the history of Java, that you don't have to start from scratch to create things that are stable, that things that are already out there that you can begin to utilize now to accelerate your application innovation. There's no notion of recreating or starting from zero. And I'm so thankful for all of the groups, all of the developers that have been creating so many useful libraries and frameworks that we as Java developers can take advantage of. And this just scratches the surface. There's hundreds of libraries and frameworks out there that you as a developer can turn to. And I'd like, to give my thanks to the ones that are listening here, all of you who continue to test, ensuring that your libraries are current on the latest releases of Java. My thanks to you to ensure that developers have that ability. Now, with evolution comes new infrastructure, and this is very important. We're moving Java to new infrastructure. We want to make sure it's modern and meeting the needs in terms of your build pipelines. And so as you see in Java 16, we already started moving the Java infrastructure to GitHub. We actually completed the mainline move to GitHub in September. And you'll see the complete transition when Java 16 is made available. And so we want to make sure, again, getting back to that notion of developer productivity, infrastructure modernness matters, and seeing us being able to adapt to an ever-changing landscape that meets your needs. This is a big deal, in my opinion, and it's something that I think just will increase productivity for developers of all kinds that are using Java today. Getting back to that notion of participation. So as we do with every release of Java, we have so many organizations and individuals that contribute to Java. We at Oracle are very thankful to have that participation. Obviously we put in 90% of the innovation and engineering and the fixing to every release. But we also are very thankful and humbled for all of the other organizations and individuals that help us on this journey. Here with Java 15, you can just see a collection of some of the companies that have helped with helping fix issues in the current Java 15 release. So industry participation, again, doing this collectively makes better decisions, gets a wider set of issues fixed, and again, makes better quality technology available for you. But let's not discount just the companies, but also individuals. I also want to highlight many of the people that have personally put in their personal time following good quality bugs in Java 15. I'm looking forward to seeing an equal measure of individual participation in Java 16, just like the folks here who have put in their time. Many of you are also putting personal time to help innovate and ensure the quality of OpenJDK is of the highest quality as possible. Now, I'm going to shift gears from technology and now focus a bit on community, because it's important we at Oracle surface all of the tools from a connection standpoint that we're making available to you. We need to do a better job. I will acknowledge that. We need to do a better job of communicating what we're doing, what we're providing to you, what you can engage with, because technology moves forward when you have a better understanding, better learning, and just better transparency in terms of what's happening. And so a lot of the things I'm going to cover now are things you can connect with to ensure you have as current information, as accurate information, as truthful information as possible to make decisions. First and foremost is Java on social. You can follow @Java, which provides general information and updates around all things Java that's happening at Oracle. You can also follow @OpenJDK. Now, this specifically provides updates specific to the OpenJDK project. You'll see updates about mailing list posts, transitions, when something is moving from an EA state to a release candidate state to general availability state. OpenJDK on Twitter is a great way to stay in touch with that sort of technical lens, whereas @Java can give you a broader perspective and picture about what's happening with Java around the world. User groups. I can't tell you how important user groups are. So when we started this program back in the early 2000s, it's just amazing to see how many user groups around the world there are. Socially, there's 300, I believe 13, now 14 Java user groups that are on social. I believe there's upwards of 350 Java user groups around the world. And although we might not be able to see each other in person, many of these user groups are creating online meetups to ensure there's that opportunity to connect, to collaborate, to communicate, to share best practices, best use cases, and do that knowledge transfer. So obviously we can push out a lot of information, but one of the best places for learning in terms of peer-to-peer learning is within user groups. So I would encourage you to find a user group local to you. If you're interested in starting a local user group, feel free to DM me on Twitter. I'll try to give you as best knowledge and best practices as possible to help you on that journey. But also I'd be happy to connect you with other Java user group leaders that have gotten this down to a science. There are some fantastic user groups around the world that I'd like to mention just for a couple of seconds. Netherlands Java user group. I just want to commend you for all you do for what you do in not just the Netherlands, but globally with your JFall conference, with your Java magazine that you make available to your members, and all of the information you put into the ecosystem. The Atlanta Java user group, you sponsor the DevNexus conference. You do so many things for the community and ecosystem. Very thankful for all you do. Su Java in Brazil and Sao Paulo. You've connected the continent of South America with so many developers, helping start other user groups in other countries, such as in Peru and Mexico and Colombia. Su Java, you should be commended for what you're doing in terms of educating Java developers, but also starting that peer-to-peer conversation. It's so important. The Dublin Java user group in Ireland, it's one of the most active Java user groups. They have meetups that they record and broadcast and share that information. So what I'm basically saying is you can find so many. I ask that you turn to this Twitter list that we've created with many of those user groups that are active for you to connect with them, but then go find them wherever they have established an online presence, but also a physical presence. Something new at Oracle that we've just launched this year. It's called Inside Java. Now, the best way for us to do knowledge transfer with you is giving you a connection to our engineers. And so many of them are starting to blog, making posts and updates to mailing lists. And so what Inside.java does is it collects all of that information for you. So say you're interested in a specific Openjdk project, but don't have time to monitor that specific mail list or that specific digest. You can come to Inside.java and get all of this information combined in one place. It allows you to have a view and a voice from the leaders of Java. Many of them, like I said, are publishing, and it's a way for you to sort of stay current and up to date to all the things that we are doing in one location for you to get that information. Along with that is something very useful. Number 20 is a new podcast. And it's amazing how quickly the Inside.java podcast has become in terms of popularity. Now, it's one thing to read information, but sometimes the best connections is actually hearing or seeing someone. There's a personal connection when you hear it articulated or see it articulated. And so we've started the Inside.java podcast. It gives you a chance to actually hear from the actual language JVM and OpenJDK experts in terms of the various projects that they are working on. Recently project updates on Loom and Panama recordings have been done, and we're looking forward to doing more recordings in the future. I would like to give a shout out to my peers, both David Delabase, who I've mentioned before, and Chad Aramura. Both of them are part of the Java DevRel team here at Oracle that started this Inside Java project specifically for the podcast, and they're putting on some amazing episodes, and we encourage you to subscribe. You can RSS feed on this as well, and download a podcast and listen in. We'd love your feedback. We even have a mailing list for you to give us suggestions, what your thoughts were on the recording, but also give us feedback as far as what topics you'd like to hear about in the future. Now, I've mentioned learning a couple of times. So 21. Here at Oracle, we are building on this concept of sharing knowledge, and part of your knowledge and your experience, the way you stand out in amongst the crowd, is to be certified. And certification is not always the easiest thing to do, and we get that, we understand that. And so to kind of help you in terms of reaching that state when you're ready to take certification is we've launched a new Oracle Explorer program. And we have a series of modules specific for Java that are all free, that you can take And by completing the Explorer program for Java, it'll earn you a badge to help you stand out amongst the crowd, but also help you prepare for eventuality of the certification program. And so I ask you to take a look and explore the Explorer program and learn a little bit more about this free offering that we make available to you. YouTube. So, videos, as I said, is a great way to connect and actually hear and see people in terms of their knowledge. And so we have our own YouTube channel for Java. This is where we aggregate all of our videos, a lot of our conference talks that we've done in the past, new recordings that we're now doing in sort of this closed environment that we live in. We're hosting them here at YouTube/Java. A lot of the recordings that we did for the 25th celebration of Java are also here. And so different conferences that we've gone to, different events that we've done, different meetups that we've participated in on a myriad of topics, whether it's Valhalla or Amber or Panama or Loom or how to just make your application more secure. We have a collection of videos here for you to take a look at. So think about exploring some of that and subscribing to the Java channel on YouTube. Now, some of you are in your day job might be an instructor. And here at Oracle, we have an interesting program through Oracle Academy, where we have a relationship with hundreds of learning institutions, universities, and colleges around the world. And we've created a Java curriculum that you can pick up and utilize within within academia, within your educational setting. We have 3 programs, which is at a fundamental level, foundations, and programming. These are, pre-scripted, pre-designed, pre-configured for you to take a look at, evaluate, and implement. But then you can also then add your own, additions to these out-of-the-box learning modules that we've created for your learning institution. And if you're a developer, you're also welcome to explore all of these learning paths as well to help further educate your journey with Java. 24, and I know we're coming close to the end of the presentation. Newsletters are really important. I can't tell you how important it is. I get it. I'm just like you in many ways. We put on our blinders. We have a day job to do. We can't sometimes, meander and let our thoughts sort of like escape because we have certain goals that are required for the job we're asked to do. And newsletters are a great way to kind of get a digested collection of all of the things that we are collectively doing here at Oracle for you. So I've presented a lot of things, both from a technical lens, from a program lens. Our Java newsletter tries to digest that for you and give you a list of all of that activity in one place. And it's a great way for you to subscribe and get that information to your inbox if that's the method that you like to receive information. Now, a lot of the programs I talked about are different ways and methods to reach you. And that's the reason why we have so many methods and ways is all of you have a different approach. All of you have a different style. All of you have a different mechanism to expand your knowledge on Java. And it's important, it is mission critical that we think about all of those avenues as far as how to reach you in the most efficient format. And so that's why we invest so many times in so many different varying programs. 25, what's going to get us to the next 25 years of Java? Absolutely, it's the investments we're making here at Oracle as the technology leader. Absolutely, it's the investments we're making as the stewards of Java. But the next 25 years of Java and beyond, it's really about you, the collection of all of you, whether you're contributing to Java, whether you're sharing your knowledge with other peers, whether it's just about building the application you're expected to do in your daily job. That is what's going to take Java forward, is that ability to utilize the technology, lean in and get support from the people who are here to help you, but also just do what it is that you're doing. That is ultimately what is so critical about the future, is a lot of what Java is tomorrow is what Java is today. Let's do this together. Let's collaborate together, and let's take Java forward. So with that, I'd like to thank you. And one of the things I want to say again, you can follow the entire Moved by Java campaign on social with the Moved by Java hashtag. Please explore OpenJDK, Start downloading early access builds. Java 16 is just around the corner in March. Inside Java, again, great place to get digested information in the podcast. Follow me on Twitter. And with that, I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for spending your Saturday with me. And before I close, these are interesting times. I ask you to all be safe. Please wear a mask, and please be responsible. Responsibility together is important. We're responsible in our community for Java. Let's be responsible in our community together as we overcome the situation we're all living in. So Ali, back to you, and thank you so much.